Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the World Cup Radar, brought to you by The Athletic. We're live on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitch as well. It is Adam Leventhal here in Doha. We're at the main media centre for this FIFA World Cup, where all the world's media congregate, where all the team managers and players visit the day before the game to do their press conferences. So it is a hive of activity as always. You just saw there the four teams' fans who have headed through to the knockout phase. Of course, England, the USA, Netherlands and Senegal, they are all through. We know those first two knockout round games. It's going to be England against Senegal and it's going to be the Netherlands against the USA. And today we will find out the next four teams that will go through. We have action in Group C and Group D. Group D, of course, is where the world champions France are housed, and they're looking very comfortable. They take on Tunisia, and then the other game is almost a shootout to go through with them between Australia and Denmark. In Group C, really interesting as well, and I'm very, very looking forward to going to the game between Poland and Argentina later on today. The other game in that group is Saudi Arabia against Mexico, and to be brutally honest, it's wide open. It's going to be a frantic evening, I would have thought. Those games kick off at 10 o'clock. The France group games kick off at 6 o'clock. So we'll get stuck into all of that. We'll reflect on yesterday. We'll be hearing from Jack Pitt-Brooke, Alex Abnos, and also Felipe Cardenas. Just sort of dig into Gareth Southgate's selection issues as well, now heading into that game against Senegal. We will also be reflecting on some of the off-the-field issues. Now that Iran have gone home, they didn't advance. Obviously, they were beaten by the United States. Some of the political issues we'll be hearing from Adam Crafton and Charlotte Harper as well. We also have our latest radar pick, which is focused on Argentina, and we will be crossing back to London as well, just to gauge the atmosphere there, but also to look ahead to some of the action with Kiva O'Neill and Michael Bailey. We also have that radar pick featuring Mark Carey too. David Ornstein is going to be joining us too, just to keep you up to date with exactly what's going on with England in particular and anything else that is on his radar today. Right, so that's what's coming up. Let's bring in our first guest. Jay Harris is here, recently arrived to the Athletic team covering the World Cup in Qatar. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, doing really good. Like you said, flew out on Monday evening, been jumped or thrown rather straight into the action. Was at Netherlands v Qatar last night. Just been to watch the Netherlands train, and then I'm off to Denmark versus Australia, the shootout that you mentioned, in about 10 minutes time. So all good.
Yeah, we didn't even mention the fact that, last night, obviously the Netherlands advancing, but that was the end of Qatar. And it's been a bit of a damp squib in terms of performance levels from the host country. And you almost feel sympathetic for those players that have to go out and represent a country. And they were never really up to the level at all, were they?
I mean, to give them credit, I don't think the Netherlands played amazing yesterday. Even Davy Klaassen, I spoke to him in the mix zone afterwards, and he said it wasn't a spectacular game. I think Ismail Mohammed, who's Qatar's right wing back, actually looks pretty good going forward, and I think he kind of exploited the gap between Nathan Ake and Daley Blind. But then there were just too many times where there weren't enough players in the box. They're just lacking those quality in those moments, and that's because I guess they're kind of at the very, very beginning of their journey. And I guess the kind of sad thing is there weren't that many fans at the game yesterday. And certainly when it was 2-0 up in the 60th, 70th minute, people started filing out. So in terms of Qatar winning this tournament with the idea it was going to, I don't know, develop football in this country, I guess we haven't really seen huge signs of that just yet.
I saw Netherlands in their opening game against Senegal, and they won that game late with 2 late goals. I thought Senegal were actually quite good at times in that game. How are they now in terms of their performance levels? Because I suppose, as you alluded to there, they should really have been running in 6 or 7 potentially against Qatar if they're really sort of advancing and improving through this tournament.
I think they're good. I don't think they're great. And again, it's what all the players I spoke to in the mix zone kind of alluded to. Nathan Aki said, there's still more to come. And said the tournament really starts now. I think it's easy for us to forget that Netherlands weren't even at the 2018 World Cup. Netherlands have such a rich history of being at the World Cup. You just automatically assume they're always going late into competitions. But I think this is Van Dijk's first World Cup. So that was a huge step for the team. But going forward, yes, we know Gakpo scored 3 goals and he has been probably one of the stars of the tournament. But he scored from the only 3 shots he's taken. They're not actually creating that many chances. In their 1-1 draw with Ecuador, they only had 2 shots. So it's not as if they're, the total football that we kind of epitomise or associate with Netherlands. We've not really seen that yet. But they've been very solid at the back. So I think there'll be a big test for the US. They'll probably get over the line, but we've still not seen the best of them yet.
We can hear from Alex Abnos in a moment's time, speaking from a US perspective. But you mentioned about the style of football. Yes, it's not sexy football. It's not total football that we expect from the Dutch, from yesteryear. This is Louis van Gaal's football, and yeah, it's a bit more pragmatic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Daley Blind is a player who, especially for people who watch the Premier League, kind of associate with being a CDM at Manchester United, or sometimes he played at centre-back, but he's very much quite a bit of a marauding left wing-back in Van Gaal's Netherlands side, which kind of gives you an idea of how, as you kind of said, the best way to put it is pragmatic. The idea is Blind and Dumfries get forward when they can, but otherwise, although they line up in a 3-4-1-2, it's more of a 5-3-2 when they're out of possession. But in terms of the pragmatism, again, another former Premier League player, David Klaassen, has been starting for the Netherlands. And, he got an assist for Gakpo last night, but I still don't know if he's the kind of player who possesses that quality to take them deeper into the tournament. That's my only kind of fear with the Netherlands. Gakpo looks amazing, as I've already mentioned. Depay first started the tournament last night. He's been injured a lot. He's had a lot of issues with his hamstring. Apart from those two, I don't think they have the quality to go really deep in this tournament. I think that's what's kind of holding back. They've got exceptional, but where else are the goals coming from if Gakpo's not scoring? That would be my biggest concern for them.
So the Netherlands are going to be facing the United States on Saturday. That game takes place. And I caught up earlier on with Alex Abnos, who's the US soccer editor for The Athletic. And this was his take on how the US will look at facing one of the big guns of world football.
They've shown over the years under Greg Berhalter that they do play up to the level of their competition. I think we saw that against England. The US didn't look that good against Wales. Like they were a little bit slow, a little bit not totally in sync. We were worried that they were going to go in against England, who had just put 6 past Iran, an Iran team I considered to be pretty good defensively, and get completely dominated. And that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's interesting that from Alex. Basically, what he was saying is that the US sort of meet their level. They didn't perform particularly well against Wales. They exceeded expectations, could probably have beaten England, and then they just did enough in that battle against Iran. So they will quite fancy, I think, facing Netherlands, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, not to spoil anything, but I've actually kind of got a piece coming out in the next couple of hours or so about what to expect from the Netherlands v the US. And I actually think the fact that the Netherlands will be expected to win, will probably have more possession, plays into the US's hands. As I've already mentioned, Blind and Dumfries try to get high when they can. And I think they're spacing behind for the likes of Pulisic, Timothy Weah, Brendan Aronson when he's on the pitch to kind of exploit there. So Gino Dest played really well as well. And like I said, I think there's some vulnerabilities on that Netherlands left-hand side. 5 goals, 3 have come from Gakpo, and the only goal the US have conceded at this tournament has been a penalty. They've been simply phenomenal in the low block. And so I worry about how Netherlands will break the US down, because even last night, and look, maybe their foot was off the gas, it was against Qatar, they were already through, quite know what to do. So I definitely think it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, we will see what happens in that game. There's some interesting elements on the Athletic Football podcast earlier on. I asked Alex about Christian Pulisic, who'd obviously scored that winning goal. He obviously came off early in the game, but it appears as if, because the stakes are so high, he should be okay for that game, and obviously he'll be a key character. Jay, stay with us for a moment, because I just wanted to start to focus now on England, and also on the Athletic Football Podcast, which you can download in all your usual podcast places, with Jack Pitt-Brooke. And we reflected on England's comfortable victory in the end over Wales, that 3-0 win with Marcus Rashford on target, Phil Foden on target, Rashford with 2, Foden with 1. The 2 players that came in to the side, in addition to 2 others, obviously. We saw Jordan Henderson and Kyle Walker come in, but as far as the attacking premise of the side, they came in, made an impact, and now that gives Gareth Southgate quite a big headache going into that round of 16 game against Senegal. This is Jack Pitt-Brooke's take on it.
Well, this is the huge question that Southgate's got over the next week or between now and the Senegal game on Sunday. Does he? I mean, Foden and Rashford were fantastic in the second half yesterday. Rashford scored twice. Foden was brilliant as well. And does he stick with those 2 because they played so well, or does he go back to Sterling and Saka, who started the first 2 games? Like, generally speaking, Southgate is very loyal to his senior players, very, very loyal to Sterling. So for him to not play Sterling in a World Cup knockout game would be a huge change of Southgate's policy. That said, Southgate, just in a press conference just last week, Southgate talked about the importance of a meritocracy and how if you play well, you have to by rights keep your place in the team. So I think it's one of the biggest selection decisions Southgate's ever had to make, and I can't quite figure out which way I think he's going to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. England are having a day off from any sort of interaction with the media today. There's been a recovery session after the game against Wales. Wales, meanwhile, obviously heading home. Gareth Bale, interestingly, after the game, obviously it didn't go to plan for him. He came off at half-time, was basically saying that he will carry on. We will see how that situation develops. But England can now look forward to that game against Senegal, Jay. The sort of the big selection issue in terms of, do you play Rashford, do you play Foden, do you bring back Saka, do you bring back Sterling? Where do you stand on it?
First of all, it's a great problem to have. You know, going into the tournament, there was so much kind of debate going on about which forward option Southgate should take. You know, Wilson, Rashford, Tony, it was all up in the air, and it seems like he's actually got it pretty spot on. I still feel like Bukayo Saka is a player that just has to start. I think he's been simply phenomenal for Arsenal, and just his ability to go past people, kind of create space for others. I think Rashford, I think the way he's kind of, you know, we've got to remember the last time we saw him at a major international tournament for England was the European Championships, and it was just such a horrific moment. So to kind of respond by scoring 3 goals in all off the bench has been brilliant, and I think he's definitely got a strong case now to potentially be starting ahead of Sterling against Senegal, just because he's been clinical in those key moments, and that's what you need in an international tournament. You just, when an opportunity is presented to you, you just have to take it, and you've obviously got to go with players who are full of confidence and in form.
Let's just have a brief word about the proposition of Senegal as well. As I mentioned earlier on, saw them against the Netherlands. They lost that game. They obviously won against Ecuador. It featured, and I was quite proud of him being, with my Watford connections, Ismail Assar scoring a no-look penalty. That takes some balls, doesn't it, to do it at a World Cup?
I think we just have to massively praise their resilience anyways. Obviously, having Sadio Mane get injured so close to the tournament, he's their biggest, he is their star. You know, he's the reigning African player of the year, I believe. So to kind of have that blow, to play pretty well against the Netherlands, and then, you know, you could maybe argue it was a mistake by Mendy for the first goal, but definitely for the second one, to kind of lose in those circumstances, that can really kick you down. So for them to have kind of bounced back in the manner that they have and win the next 2 games was not easy at all. They won AFCON for a reason. They're a resilient team. They keep going. We know the quality of Koulibaly and Sarr, as you mentioned. So I think they're going to be a difficult proposition for England. But having said that, I would still expect England to go through.
Okay, Jay, thank you very much for now. Great to have you on the show. Obviously, on The Athletic, we have been covering the football, but also the off-the-field issues as well. And with the United States going through, obviously that eliminated Iran. And one of the main topics of debate regarding Iran has been the protests from fans here in Qatar and putting a spotlight and as much attention as possible on the human rights issues, in particular the women's rights issues, back at home. Now, on the Athletic Football podcast, Adam Crafton and Charlotte Harper featured, and they have both written articles on the Athletic over the past couple of days, focused on the stories of those Iranian fans who have been protesting here in Qatar. Have a listen to this.
They were taken down into a detention centre that they described it as a ramp underneath the stadium. And there were police officers there. He said it very much felt like a police station. He was interviewed, said you're not allowed to wear the shirt, had his shirt taken off him, had a case number filed, and had to sign a document to say he would never wear this again in Qatar.
Having to sign a document never to wear a specific t-shirt in a country again. Like, if you just step back, how ridiculous is that? How can that possibly be the case, that a t-shirt that bears no relation to the state that you're in, Qatar, you're having to sign a document to say, I'm not going to wear this again? And these Iranian women who have become pretty attuned to when they're being watched and what it's like to protest, they said that they'd become aware of these men wearing suits and in some cases carrying binoculars, who had been trying to intimidate them. And this had led to FIFA receiving reports from supporters in stadiums to say that women, Iranian female fans in the stadiums, feared that there were state spotters there, I suppose almost trying to watch for who are the women causing problems, and I say that in inverted commas, who was trying to raise a voice, and I think these women feared potential repercussions if they were ever to return to the state of Iran under the current regime, or even for their families who are there as well.
Yeah, so that was Adam Crafton and speaking about the Iranian political issues, and we'll continue to cover that story on The Athletic. If you want to listen further to that discussion, you can head on to the Athletic Football podcast. You get it in all your usual podcast places. Okay, just in a moment's time, we will be getting our latest radar pick. We'll also be joined by Felipe Cardenas to talk about Argentina, reflect on the US as well. But as you can see, I've been joined by Michael Bailey and Kiva O'Neill back in London. And we're going to have a quick chat here about the situation in Group D. Obviously, France are through. They're looking very comfortable. But it's that game between Australia and Denmark, which is basically like a playoff. It's really intriguing, isn't it?
Hello, Adam. Yeah, welcome to London. This is a game we're looking forward to. I think you're live blogging.
I am live blogging it, which the last game I had 6 goals. So I'm hoping for fewer goals than that, but probably just as much excitement.
It feels like after that Spain and Germany game, the World Cup's just sort of started now. Everyone watched that and thought, yeah, let's get going here. Loads of goals, loads of fun. And I actually live blogged Australia's last game, which is like I think, what was it, like the second ever win or something at the World Cup?
Third ever win in the World Cup, yeah.
There you go. Just incredible. Graham Arnold, the manager, the first Australian coach to lead Australia to a win at the World Cup. Just special scenes. And I know Charlotte Harper's put together a piece on Mitchell Duke, the goal scorer on The Athletic, which you just should definitely read. He's 31, so perhaps this is his last World Cup. Pops up with that goal, which our tactics writer Liam Tom actually predicted, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so just a really good story. He's one of 9 siblings, born in Sydney, just, a real grafter. And obviously his celebration as well was absolutely gorgeous for his little lad Jackson. He'd done a bit of a J, and then the camera panned to his little lad just looking at him. Like, imagine that, your dad scoring at the World Cup and doing a celebration for you. It's what dreams are made of. My
boys will never get that. I can tell them how much.
Yeah, my children likewise. That dream has drifted away a long time ago. And Michael, from your point of view, obviously we've dealt with the Aussie side of things. It's been interesting with Denmark, really, hasn't it? Because they have almost, I suppose, been the most authentic side in looking the most disillusioned by this tournament, both off the field and on it, haven't they? They just not looked that into it.
Obviously they've had a lot going on, and I feel like they've been a country certainly a country and the FA and a team that have been trying to really make a stand almost on their own at times, and that's obviously not ideal when you're also involved in the sporting side of it. They're in an interesting position because they know they have to win the game, whereas Australia know that a draw might be enough, and the simplicity of that might help Denmark some way. I mean, Andreas Cornelius's miss against Tunisia from a ridiculous opportunity that could yet cost them, but likewise they've had 90 minutes to kind of warm up to this moment. So it's a very they've got to this point, they know what they need to do, and it might play into their hands. I quite like Australia as a team, I must admit. I think they have a lot of energy, and there is a bit of quality there as well, which I saw at Norwich before I left for the World Cup from Riley McCree. So it's a great opportunity for them. But Denmark, the simplicity of the situation may yet be an advantage for them.
I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out as well, because Australia just need a point. They've got someone like Harry Souttar, Stoke City's Harry Souttar, who was absolutely phenomenal against Tunisia in that win. You know, it'll be interesting, do they just sit back, or do they try and get that goal again through Mitchell Duke or Craig Goodwin, who obviously scored that opening goal against France, for it to all sort of fall apart, probably expectedly so. So it's going to be interesting to see how they set up. Do they let Denmark just keep attacking, or do they go for it themselves? It's going to be a really interesting one.
Indeed it is. Group D comes to a close this season at 6. Australia against Denmark, France against Tunisia. France aiming to be 100% in the group stages. Michael, Caoimhe, thank you very much indeed. But if you want more Caoimhe O'Neill, I have something for you. The radar, obviously, is a huge piece of work from the Athletic. 100 players selected prior to the tournament. Some big guns in there, but others just to mark your card, ones to watch. The likes of Cody Gakpo, for example, who has gone on to great things within this tournament. But today's radar pick, which features Caoimhe O'Neill and also Mark Carey, centres on basically the big game of the day, and that is Poland against Argentina. And we're really looking forward to seeing, obviously, Lionel Messi, but one other guy as well after his exploits against Mexico. Here you go, the radar.
Hello and welcome to the Athletics World Cup Radar. I'm Caoimhe O'Neill, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by our very own data expert, Mark Carey. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Caoimhe. You okay?
Yeah, very good. Very excited to have you on. And we have got a player to talk about today from the radar, which you co-founded, I like to say, called Enzo Fernandez. You may have heard of him. You definitely might have, given that he scored an absolutely superb goal for Argentina in their 2-0 victory over Mexico. You've got a quick stat for us, which I really like on that goal.
The stat, I believe, is that the youngest player to score in the World Cup since Enzo Fernandez was a certain Lionel Messi, which he has a lot of stats when it comes to Argentina in terms of record breaking. But it was just a nice sort of symmetry that he was the one to pass and have the assist for Enzo Fernandez. So passing the baton, if you like.
Yeah, I really like that. Enzo Fernandez is a player who is obviously a central midfielder. He's just signed for Benfica in the summer on a 5-year deal. Lots of clubs interested in him: Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Real Madrid. There was the radar, if you read it on The Athletic, Sam Lee wrote that Klopp was very keen on, supposedly very keen on signing Enzo Fernandez. And I guess if we get into the data, Mark, you'll be able to tell us why these top clubs are after him.
Yeah, well, if we could get his pizza chart up, that would be immensely helpful. I think it's worth noting here that you can see he's down as a defensive midfielder. He plays, basically Benfica play in a 4-2-3-1, and he's sort of nominally a defensive midfielder, but he's able to play box to box. He's able to play in more advanced areas. And that's why you can see so much kind of variation in his pizza chart. So what he's sort of primarily good at is just being able to dictate the tempo of a game. And again, we're talking about someone who's 21 years old. He's already showing such maturity, obviously enough to play in a World Cup and make an impact. But shown by his link-up play volume, you can see just how much he likes to play neat, short passes, and does it at a very high rate and a ball rate, and looking how much he keeps possession, you can see his ball retention ability is very, very high. It's not necessarily shown as much in this pizza chart here, but looking at the video, you can see just his range of passing. He is also able to play more raking balls kind of across field with great accuracy. And as you can see, his attacking play is really good as well. I think that he's already got 3 assists for Benfica so far this season. He's played started every game for Benfica, 3 assists and a goal, I think, which, considering the position that he's playing, is a pretty decent return. And it's quite clear that he's got a good effort in him because of the goal that he scored against Mexico. So very good on the ball, but really quite destructive and really good defensive awareness off the ball as well, which you can see from all of the red defensive actions on his pizza chart. So the one that's sort of biggest here is defending impact. So it shows that he's really effective in preventing the opposition from progressing the ball further, whether that is by tackling, intercepting, or just having a sort of a presence in his pressure. So he's quite a terrier off the ball. He's very clearly skilled on the ball, and he's got a good bit of an attacking contribution in him as well. So full package.
Yeah, definitely sounds like the full package. And I think in the radar, and you already mentioned this before we come on, to say that he has got shades of Thiago, which is not a bad compliment for any player. I think in the radar, Modric, Xavi, and Ilkay Gundogan are all mentioned as sort of players he's similar to, which not a bad group of players to be compared to.
You've got to be careful not to hype someone up too much, but there is that sort of element to it in terms of, as I say, the ability to dictate the tempo of a game, which I think is obviously crucial for someone in central midfield. Obviously, Benfica as well, who he's playing for, are possessionally dominant. They're going to be having more of the ball than a lot of the other teams in that league. So he's going to have to be comfortable on the ball. And you think about the pressure to dominate a game. If he were to get a move, he's only just moved to Benfica, but if he were to get a move in the near future, it would be for someone he'd have to be comfortable on the ball for a long period. The fact that he went from River Plate to Benfica for, I think, 9 million. I think it was 9 million pounds, but I don't know whether it was 9 million euros, but you're talking still an absolute bargain.
Very low fee.
Very low fee. And you think, not just because of the goal that he scored against Mexico, but his quality. If there were going to be Premier League clubs sniffing around him, as there already have been, if Benfica was to sell him, you're talking maybe even into 100 million plus, maybe just shy of that, but just how much of a good sell-on they get given his quality. So a really good piece of recruitment from Benfica. Yeah,
definitely. And Benfica, I think their manager said he's not going nowhere. he's they want to hold on to him. You do often see players go to like Porto, Benfica, and then clubs in England, Spain, wherever else have got their eyes on them, tracking them, maybe even tracking them before that. A lot of players sort of that have signed for Liverpool recently. Liverpool have had their eyes on them for a while, like Sir Luis Diaz playing his football in Portugal. It feels like it very much could be his next move. You're already thinking about that, but he's 21. He's at Benfica. They want to keep hold of him, and he just feels like a real bright spark future player for both club and country.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely get more minutes and more caps, for Argentina as the years go on. I think in terms of him going to Benfica from River Plate, I think that's where the top clubs quite like the move being sort of via Portugal, maybe via a France or somewhere where it's less of a risk to go directly from somewhere like Argentina or Brazil straight to a top club in England, let's say. So Julian Alvarez is probably the exception to that for Manchester City recently, but I think the sort of the pathway to eventually get to the Premier League, and obviously we've got our Premier League hats on, is quite typical to kind of go via those leagues. So I wouldn't be surprised if not come the summer, then in the next couple of years he might make a move further.
Yeah, definitely. So that's Enzo Fernandez, who plays for Argentina. Keep an eye on him for the rest of the World Cup. He's going to be maybe starting the next game for Argentina. Who knows? He's definitely going to be playing a lot of football for them in the future. So keep him on your...
Brilliant, Kiva. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, Enzo Fernandez, we're looking forward to potentially seeing him from the start, maybe this evening in the game between Poland and Argentina. Felipe Cardenas has joined us to discuss that selection in the radar, but obviously the action this evening. Just a quick word on Enzo Fernandez. Obviously, we can just sort of let that goal just wash over us again, because it's worth watching and watching and watching, isn't it?
It was a great goal. It's going to be one of the goals of the tournament.
Yeah.
I think, I mentioned on my own podcast, Copa, that, Mexico and Argentina have a history of great goals now in every World Cup where they've met. And this one will be long remembered, I believe. And Enzo Fernandez, what was the focus of yesterday's Matchday -1 press conference with Lionel Scaloni, a lot of the reporters were asking him about him. Has he earned a place in the starting 11? He's all over the papers in Argentina as well, because he's a player, I think, that now Argentines feel he has earned that spot. He can be the number 6 that this team needs. The thing is, he's sort of an untraditional defensive midfielder. He doesn't just sit and tackle. He doesn't sit behind or in between the center backs. He wants to get forward a little bit. His profile is still growing, but we saw what he can do. We saw that he is unnerved by the big moment. And that's, I think, the top line for Enzo Fernandez right now, that he just continues to excel in the top leagues and now at the World Cup.
Going into the game this evening, Poland are obviously top, Argentina in second. What is the feeling? Is there a nervousness, or is there a great confidence after that victory over Mexico?
I wouldn't say great confidence, but there's more confidence. They were very anxious, nervy. Every player has brought that up. After the win against Mexico, Angel Di Maria, Lionel Messi, and Rodrigo de Paul all spoke in the mixed zone, and everyone said that the days following that Saudi loss were pretty devastating. Like, this is a team that is so together, that was used to winning, and it was like they didn't know how to react. And there was a big fear that they would not react against Mexico. I think they focused a little bit too much on Mexico, and you could see that they were surprised by Mexico's approach. And so Argentina didn't really know where they were supposed to be. And the script has changed a little bit, that now the questions are, well, now that you got that win and you remove the elephant off your back, can you approach Poland the way that this team knows how to play? And so that is the expectation. And I think Poland is going to be compact. They can follow. So I wouldn't say great confidence, because they're not through, but there is a renewed sense of hope that this team can be a contender.
He's not as big a star as Lionel Messi. Obviously, no one is. Maybe, well, only Cristiano Ronaldo, Lewandowski, who is a match winner. Has there been any talk about having to give him, great respect? And obviously, he is someone that is going to want to lead his country to another victory.
It's funny, because he's the only Polish player that is talked about in these Matchday -1 press conferences by international game. He was the focus for every reporter that was reporting on Mexico, but wanted to know what the threats were for Poland. And yesterday as well, Lisandro Martinez was the player that was available for Argentina.
Hello and welcome back to London. You didn't think you'd be seeing us again, but here we are.
It's a shame we've lost Adam there, but I think it's a long way away, isn't it, Qatar? So just a few technical issues.
Yeah, we've been riding through them, haven't we? Quite
exactly,
well.
Exactly. We'll see if we can get him back. Maybe, although we've been going for a fair amount of time. So interesting, they're talking about the Argentina and Poland's plight coming up to the end of the group stages. I still can't believe how emotional Robert Lewandowski was about scoring his first World Cup goal.
Yeah, especially after that penalty in the first game, and obviously, to see him, it's one of the most surprising stats of the World Cup that he hasn't scored a World Cup goal yet. I mean, are there any other players of his stature that have been unable to do so? So yeah, that was incredibly emotional, and you're seeing obviously Lionel Messi as well, incredibly emotional. It's been quite an emotional World Cup so far on the pitch, hasn't it? And
yes, I think
for players scoring the first goals, scoring important goals.
both on and off the pitch. It's been an emotional experience for a lot of people, I'm sure, this World Cup. We'll leave Adam, I think, to go and to rest and recuperate, or maybe do even more work. He's doing a sterling job out there in Qatar, obviously. We'll be back tomorrow with another Radar and loads more stuff. Enjoy all the football this evening. And before we go, let's leave you with Matt Slater, who took on the remarkable challenge, possibly the only time or place you could do it in the world at any time in the past, of watching 4 games of professional football in one day at a World Cup. Here's Matt. Have a lovely day, and we will see you all tomorrow.
So this might be the last day anyone can ever watch 4 games of professional football in one day. I've got my itinerary. Game number 1, Cameroon-Serbia at the Al Janoub Stadium, 1 o'clock kickoff. Game number 2, Korea-Ghana at Education City Stadium at 4 o'clock. And then it's Stadium 974, the one made out of shipping containers, 7 o'clock, Brazil, Switzerland. Final game of the day, the Lusail Stadium, where the final will be held, Portugal, Uruguay, 10 p.m. I'm going to be on my own for most of today, so I'm going to be shooting on my phone. Wish me luck. Stadium number 1, Al Janoub. Okay, match number 1. There's my ticket. Not today. We are about 55 minutes from kickoff. Cameroon-Serbia. Are you ready for a good time? I don't like to do it, but I had to leave 20 minutes early. I've got to run. Metro? Metro? Metro?
Doing 4 games, that's amazing, because that's the only time you can do that. I think before in the World Cups you could maybe do 2.
What do you think? All right, let's go. Well, this is 2 out of 4 for me. Half time, just going pretty well. Well, I've made it to the Metro. That's 2 games down. Had to get a little bit of a jog on there, and now my pants are all bunched up. A bit uncomfortable. Sharep Station again, on the Gold Line, heading to Brazil, Switzerland. It's the biggie. Okay, well, welcome everywhere I go. It's lovely, musical interludes, beautiful tunes. That's where I'm going, by the way. Brazil, Switzerland, come on.
Goal number 12, and I saw that one.
Well, I appear to have beaten the rush. Let's set sail for Lusail. I've done it. Four in one day, okay? When was the last time anyone will be able to do that? Are we going to do this again? Are we going to do the World Cup in a city again? I'm not so sure. 48 teams. What city could do that? Look, Qatar said they were going to do a compact, accessible World Cup. They have, but clearly I've needed a press pass to do this and some lucky tickets as well. So this wasn't entirely natural, but I've done it. And I've done 12 miles on my feet alone and 50, 60 miles on the Metro. One more game.